Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power wasn't just a star, he was a phenomenon. With his smoldering gaze and effortless charm, he ruled Hollywood's golden age, making audiences swoon with every smirk and sword fight. He was the ultimate swashbuckler, dashing through films like The Mark of Zorro and Blood and Sand, leaving a trail of broken hearts both on and off the screen. Women adored him, men wanted to be him, and the studios knew they had lightning in a bottle. His off-screen romance were just as legendary as his on-screen duels. Linked to icons like Lana Turner and Judy Garland, Power was the quintessential matinee idol, a man whose allure transcended the silver screen. But he wasn't just a pretty face. When World War II called, he traded in his Hollywood crown for a Marine Corps uniform, flying combat missions in some of the war's most brutal battles. That only added to his mystique. Here was a man who could charm a room and then risk his life in the skies. His untimely death at 44 was a gut punch to Hollywood, cutting short a career that still had so much to give. But in a way, it only solidified his legend. Tyrone Power was more than an actor. He was an era, a symbol of effortless masculinity, and a name that still conjures images of adventure, romance, and undeniable star power. If there's a modern equivalent, it might be Chris Evans, a leading man with classic good looks, heroic roles, and an easy charisma that captivates audiences. But even in today's world, few can match the sheer magnetism of Tyrone Power, Hollywood's ultimate heartbreaker. Errol Flynn. If there was ever a man who embodied the phrase "devil may care," it was Errol Flynn. With his smoldering gaze, effortless charm, and a roguish grin that could melt hearts across continents, Flynn wasn't just a Hollywood star, he was its most notorious seducer. In the golden age of cinema, few actors commanded as much attention from adoring fans as he did. His reputation as a swashbuckling hero in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood only amplified his allure, making him the ultimate fantasy for audiences worldwide. But it wasn't just his on-screen bravado that made him irresistible. It was the way he lived off-screen, with a reckless abandon that both scandalized and fascinated the world. Flynn's exploits were the stuff of legend. His name became so synonymous with effortless seduction that the phrase "in like Flynn" was coined, a testament to his seemingly unbreakable streak of romantic conquests. Women were drawn to him like moths to a flame, captivated by his intoxicating mix of danger and charisma. He threw lavish parties that blurred the lines between Hollywood glamour and outright debauchery, attracting the biggest stars and the most beautiful women of the era. He was a man who lived as if the world was his playground, and for a time it truly was. Yet beneath the playboy persona was a man who burned too brightly. Despite his magnetic presence and undeniable talent, Flynn's hard-living ways caught up with him. By the time he reached his 40s, the years of excess had taken their toll. He passed away at just 50 years old, leaving behind a legacy of adventure, scandal, and timeless charm. Even today, his name evokes images of romance, danger, and a life lived at full tilt. If Hollywood has ever had a true rogue, it was Errol Flynn, an icon of seduction whose legend refuses to fade. Gary Cooper. He wasn't the loudest man in the room, but he didn't need to be. Gary Cooper had a presence that could silence a crowd, not with words, but with a look. Tall, lean, and effortlessly masculine, he embodied the kind of rugged charm that made women swoon and men want to be him. His piercing blue eyes, framed by a chiseled, almost weathered face, carried a quiet intensity that made every role he played feel larger than life. In the golden age of Hollywood, Cooper wasn't just a star, he was an archetype. The strong, silent hero who spoke volumes without ever raising his voice. Off-screen, his appeal was just as undeniable. Women adored him, and he was romantically linked to some of the most glamorous actresses of the era, including Marlene Dietrich and Patricia Neal. Neal in particular was deeply enamored with him, their affair becoming one of Hollywood's most whispered-about romances. But despite his status as one of the most sought-after men in the industry, Cooper remained humble, almost reluctant about his fame. That quiet modesty only added to his allure. He never had to chase the spotlight, it simply followed him. His on-screen persona cemented his legend. Whether playing the noble sheriff in High Noon or the everyman hero in Sergeant York, he exuded an effortless strength that made audiences believe in him. He didn't rely on grand gestures or over-the-top theatrics. Instead, he let the weight of his presence do the talking. It's a quality rarely seen in modern Hollywood, though actors like Ryan Gosling, with his subdued yet magnetic performances, carry a similar mystique. Cooper's legacy isn't just in the films he left behind, it's in the timeless appeal of a man who understood that true power doesn't need to shout. Rudolph Valentino. Before James Dean smoldered on screen or Elvis sent hearts racing, there was Rudolph Valentino, the original Latin lover, the man who defined cinematic seduction in the roaring 20s. With his piercing gaze and hypnotic presence, Valentino wasn't just a movie star, he was an obsession. Women swooned in theaters, some reportedly fainting at the sheer intensity of his performances. His roles in films like The Sheik and Blood and Sand cemented his status as Hollywood's first great heartthrob, a man whose very name became synonymous with passion and desire. But Valentino's allure wasn't just about looks. He had an exotic mystique that set him apart from the clean-cut leading men of his time. His Italian heritage, his graceful movements, and his ability to exude both dominance and vulnerability made him irresistible. He was a fantasy brought to life, a man who could sweep a woman off her feet with a glance. And then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, he was gone. In August of 1926, at only 31 years old, Valentino died unexpectedly, sending his legion of admirers into a frenzy of grief. Reports from the time claim that tens of thousands of fans gathered for his funeral, with some women collapsing in despair. His death wasn't just a tragedy, it was the final act of a legend, solidifying his place as a timeless icon of romance and longing. Even now, nearly a century later, his influence lingers. Every brooding, dark-eyed, leading man who followed owes a debt to Valentino. If there's a modern comparison, it might be someone like Antonio Banderas in his prime, exuding charm, mystery, and a touch of danger. But even Banderas never inspired the kind of hysteria that Valentino did. He wasn't just a star, he was a phenomenon, a man whose mere presence could make the world sigh. Clark Gable. Clark Gable wasn't just a movie star, he was the movie star. With his chiseled jawline, roguish grin, and that unmistakable baritone voice, he defined masculine allure in Hollywood's golden age. Women swooned, men wanted to be him, and studios scrambled to cast him in roles that played to his devil-may-care charm. But it was his turn as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind that immortalized him as the ultimate leading man. That cocky smirk, the way he delivered, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn."
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
It wasn't just acting, it was seduction on a grand scale. Audiences couldn't get enough. Off-screen, Gable's magnetism was just as potent. His love affair with Carole Lombard was the stuff of Hollywood legend. A fiery, passionate romance that ended in heartbreak when she tragically died in a plane crash in the early 1940s. Despite his rugged, tough guy persona, those who knew him best spoke of his deep devotion to Lombard, a love that haunted him for the rest of his life. Even Marilyn Monroe, a woman who captivated the world with her own undeniable allure, admitted that Gable's presence left her nervous and awestruck. If Monroe, the very definition of sex appeal, found him intimidating, what chance did anyone else have? Gable's influence didn't end with his passing in the early 1960s. His brand of effortless cool and undeniable masculinity set the standard for generations of leading men. If there's a modern equivalent, it might be someone like George Clooney, suave, self-assured, and always in control. But even Clooney would probably tip his hat to the original king of Hollywood. Because when it comes to timeless charm, Clark Gable still reigns supreme. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift wasn't just another Hollywood heartthrob, he was a revelation. In an era dominated by the square-jawed confidence of actors like Clark Gable and John Wayne, Clift offered something different, a delicate, almost fragile beauty that made him utterly mesmerizing. His soulful eyes carried an intensity that hinted at something deeper, something wounded, and that vulnerability only made him more irresistible. Women weren't just drawn to his looks, they were captivated by the quiet storm brewing beneath his surface. Unlike his contemporaries, who exuded effortless bravado, Clift's appeal lay in his sensitivity. He wasn't the man who conquered, he was the man who felt, and that distinction set him apart. At the height of his fame in the late 1940s and early 1950s, Clift was redefining Hollywood masculinity. Films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity showcased his ability to convey longing, pain, and passion with just a glance. His chemistry with Elizabeth Taylor in A Place in the Sun was electric, not because of grand romantic gestures, but because of the unspoken intensity between them. Off-screen, Taylor adored him, calling him her closest friend and protector. Their bond was so strong that when Clift suffered a near-fatal car accident in 1956, it was Taylor who rushed to his side, pulling broken teeth from his throat to save him from choking. That accident altered his face, leaving him with a slightly stiffer jaw and more haunted eyes, but it didn't diminish his allure. If anything, it deepened it. The tragedy of Montgomery Clift was that his beauty was never just about the surface. Even as Hollywood fixated on his changing appearance, his magnetism remained intact. His later roles, such as in Judgment at Nuremberg, revealed an even more raw, exposed version of the actor audiences had fallen in love with. His struggles with personal demons and the pressures of fame only added to his mystique. When he passed away at just 45, he left behind not just a body of work, but an aura, an enduring legend of a man whose beauty was never just skin deep. In today's world, his closest modern counterpart might be someone like Timothée Chalamet, an actor who similarly blends delicate features with an emotional intensity that makes him impossible to look away from. Clift wasn't just a star, he was a feeling, a presence, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful kind of masculinity isn't the loudest, but the most vulnerable. William Holden. William Holden was the embodiment of effortless masculinity, the kind of man who made women swoon with a single glance. With his chiseled features, deep-set eyes, and that signature half-smile that hinted at both charm and danger, he was the golden boy of the 1950s. But beneath that polished exterior was a restless spirit, a man who lived fast and played by his own rules. His on-screen chemistry with Audrey Hepburn and Sabrina wasn't just acting. It was real, electric, undeniable. Their affair became the stuff of legend, a secret whispered through Hollywood circles. Hepburn, the epitome of grace, was captivated by Holden's roguish charm, though their romance was ultimately doomed. Off-screen, Holden was a paradox. Polished yet unpredictable, disciplined yet rebellious. He had a reputation for pushing boundaries both in his career and personal life, making him all the more intriguing. His tragic passing in 1981 only added to his mystique, forever freezing him in time as one of Hollywood's most enigmatic leading men. If there were a modern equivalent, perhaps it would be someone like Brad Pitt. Rugged, effortlessly charismatic, and always carrying the weight of a deeper, untold story beneath the surface. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson wasn't just a movie star, he was a phenomenon. With his impossibly square jaw, towering 6'4" frame, and a smile that could melt glaciers, he was the very definition of Hollywood's golden age leading man. Women adored him, men wanted to be him, and studios built entire films around his effortless charm. Whether he was brooding in a dramatic role or flashing that signature grin in a romantic comedy, Hudson had an undeniable magnetism that made him a box office titan. His most famous on-screen partnership was with Doris Day, where their playful, flirtatious chemistry in films like Pillow Talk and Lover Come Back had audiences swooning. Off-screen, their friendship was just as strong, with Day later recalling his warmth and humor as the secret to their electric dynamic. But behind the scenes, Hudson carried a secret that made his Hollywood heartthrob image all the more complex. In an era when being openly gay could end a career, he lived a double life, carefully curating his public persona while privately navigating a world that refused to accept his truth. His struggle added depth to his legacy, making his performances even more poignant in hindsight. When he passed away in 1985 due to complications from AIDS, it sent shockwaves through the industry, forcing Hollywood to confront a crisis it had largely ignored. His death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a turning point, bringing much-needed awareness and humanizing the epidemic in a way no one else could. Today, if there were a modern equivalent to Hudson's effortless allure, someone like Henry Cavill might come close. An actor with the same classic good looks, towering presence, and a quiet, almost mysterious charisma that makes him utterly captivating on screen. Paul Newman. Paul Newman was the blueprint for effortless cool. Those piercing blue eyes could stop anyone in their tracks, but it was his quiet confidence and undeniable talent that made him a legend. In the golden age of cinema, when bad boys ruled the screen, Newman had something different. A rebellious streak wrapped in genuine warmth. Women adored him, men wanted to be him, and directors knew he could turn any role into something iconic. From Cool Hand Luke to the Hustler, he played characters who were tough yet vulnerable, always carrying an air of mystery that made audiences lean in closer. But what made him even more irresistible? Unlike many of his contemporaries, Newman was famously devoted to one woman, Joanne Woodward. Their love story wasn't just Hollywood magic, it was real, lasting over 50 years. In an industry known for fleeting romances, his loyalty only made him more desirable. And beyond the screen, he proved he was more than just a pretty face. Newman's philanthropic work, From his Newman's Own food empire, donating millions to charity, to his tireless advocacy for social causes, cemented his legacy as a man of substance. Even today, few actors can match his blend of rugged charm, undeniable talent, and unwavering integrity. Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck wasn't just an actor. He was the embodiment of quiet strength and effortless charm. Towering at 6'3" with a deep, velvety voice that could command a room, he became one of Hollywood's most respected leading men of the 1940s and 50s. But what truly set him apart wasn't just his looks, it was the way he carried himself. Dignified, composed, and always exuding an air of gentlemanly grace, Peck had a magnetism that made women swoon and directors line up to cast him. His defining role came in 1962 when he portrayed Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. As the noble, unwavering lawyer who stood for justice in the racially divided South, Peck didn't just play a role. He became a symbol of integrity. The performance earned him an Academy Award, but more than that, it cemented him as the ultimate gentleman hero. Women adored him not just for his striking looks, but for the kindness and warmth he radiated both on and off the screen. Off camera, Peck was known for his generosity and humility. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he avoided scandal and instead built a reputation as one of Hollywood's true-class acts. He was a devoted family man, a loyal friend, and a rare breed of star who never let fame erode his dignity. Even in his later years, he remained one of Hollywood's most beloved and undeniably handsome icons. If there were a modern equivalent to Peck's timeless appeal, it might be someone like George Clooney, an actor who, much like Peck, exudes charm, intelligence, and an old-school sense of grace that never goes out of style. Robert Taylor. In the golden age of Hollywood, where leading men were sculpted like Greek statues and draped in mystery, Robert Taylor stood above the rest. Dubbed the man with a perfect profile, his chiseled jawline and piercing eyes made women swoon and directors clamor to cast him. But Taylor wasn't just a pretty face. His deep, velvety voice and smoldering intensity made him the ultimate romantic lead. Films like Camille and Waterloo Bridge cemented his status as a heartthrob, his presence on screen exuding an effortless charm that left audiences breathless. Off-screen, his love life was just as captivating. His romance with Barbara Stanwyck was one of the most talked-about relationships in Hollywood, though whispers suggested it was more of a studio arrangement than a passionate affair. Stanwyck, older and more experienced, reportedly took on a mentor-like role, calling him Junior, and insisting she had much to teach him. Their marriage, though glamorous, was riddled with differences. Taylor, an avid outdoorsman and skilled horseman, adored adventure, while Stanwyck preferred the comforts of city life. Their one attempt at camping together was a disaster, a clear sign that their worlds didn't quite align. Despite the carefully curated image MGM crafted for him, Taylor had a rugged side that only added to his allure. He wasn't just a polished matinee idol, he had real grit. His transition from swoon-worthy romantic leads to more masculine, commanding roles in the late 1930s proved he was more than a pretty face. And when World War II called, he answered, serving as a Navy flyer and directing training films, further solidifying his heroic image. His legacy as one of Hollywood's most alluring men remains intact. His films still celebrate in classic retrospectives. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.